Greetings and salutations, everyone, and welcome to the Mel Blackwell Experience on this August 28th, the year of our Lord 2025. Heading into Labor Day weekend, and I'm a little delinquent on my podcast, but that's all right. Want to jump right on in today with Jordan Peterson. This is going to be an excellent podcast. We're going to look a little bit at deception and honesty. We're going to look at that in our business and in government. And I think this will be very valuable, especially for the young people out there.
You know, in Dante's Inferno, when he outlined the levels of hell, so Dante was trying to get to the bottom of what constituted evil, really, in this representation. So it's a work of psychology, and he was thinking, well, there are various ways to behave reprehensibly, but there's a hierarchy of reprehensible behavior, and there's something absolutely the worst at the bottom. And Dante believed that it was betrayal. And I think that's right, because, you know, one of the things that enables long-term cooperation, peaceful cooperation between people is trust. And I would also say that trust is the fundamental natural resource. There's been some very good books written on the economic utility of trust, for example, and societies where the default economic presupposition between trading partners is trust tend to be rich, even if they don't have any natural resources. And you can see that, for example, with what happened with eBay, which I think was a kind of miracle, because what should have happened with eBay was that you sent me junk and I sent you a check that bounced, right? And that was the end of eBay. But right, exactly. But that isn't what happened. Like the default transaction on eBay was so honest that the brokers, you could hire brokers to begin with. I can't remember what they were called exactly, but you could pay someone a fee so that they would guarantee the transaction. So, you know, you wouldn't send me junk and I'd actually send you a payment, and we'd pay 10% for someone to guarantee that. The default trade was so honest that those things vanished right away. And so that meant that all this frozen capital, roughly speaking, which were all the junk that people had lying around that someone else might want, instantly became money. And the only reason that worked was because people trusted one another. And so trust is an unbelievably powerful economic force, maybe the most powerful economic force. Anyways, if you have a relationship with someone, it's predicated on trust. And part of the reason for that is that trust is what enables us to look at each other without running away screaming. And what I mean by that is that if I trust you, then I don't have to take into account how complicated you are, because you're horribly complicated. You know, I think chimpanzee full of snakes, that's what a human being is. And as long as you'll do what you say you'll do, then I can take you at your word, and your word simplifies you, and you can take me at my word, and my word simplifies you, and then we can act like we understand each other even though we don't. But then if that trust is betrayed, then all the snakes come forth very, very rapidly. And so all of you, I suspect, have been betrayed one way or another. And so what happens, if you're in a relationship with someone and you trust them, then you make certain assumptions about the past, and you make certain assumptions about the present, and you make certain assumptions about the future. And everything's stable, and so you're standing on solid ground. And the chaos, it's like you're standing on thin ice. The chaos is hidden. The shark beneath the waves isn't there. You're safe. You're in the lifeboat. But then if the person betrays you, like if you're in an intimate relationship and the person has an affair and you find out about it, then you think one moment you're one place, right? You're where everything is secure because you've predicated your perception of the world on the axiom of trust. And the next second, you're in a completely different place.
Mm-hmm. All right. I might take that a different direction than you would think. I don't know about you guys, but I just marvel at where we've gotten in the world, where you have people in government or in businesses. So think of the Cracker Barrel thing this week. You think back to Pepsi and different, there's others. There's a lot of others. They just don't make the headlines. And then you think about cities, you know, Washington, D.C. I mean, heck, Birmingham was like number 2, I think, on the list of most dangerous cities in terms of murders per capita. And so you think about our cities, and you say, well, who runs these cities? And the question I have is, you know, are they betraying us? Because they're not telling you the truth. They're basically saying, don't believe your lying eyes. Don't believe what your experiences are. Don't believe if you feel safe or not safe. Don't worry if you worry about your kids. Don't worry about those things. We're going to deceive you. Okay, we're going to tell you everything's okay when it's not. And then if you watch the news media, and there's all of them, but when you watch it, they come out and they go, the Democrats have a messaging problem. And I'm like, no, they don't. They have a conviction problem. They're not convicted with the truth. They don't care about the truth. And I'm not doing red versus blue, Democrat, Republican. What I'm saying is, what do we have as citizens if we can't live in a safe city, in a safe neighborhood, a safe school, a safe church, safe sidewalks, safe parks? You know what I mean? Like safe at a ball game, safe at a concert, safe walking downtown. And so you can live in denial until it hits you. And you can be the kind of person that doesn't care because it hurts other people and not you. But those are wrong things. And so what I want to bring us back to in business are the basics. I mean, you remember the basic things, something that I've done this a good bit in business. And it's sometimes I call it sandbox ethics. And so our business best practice today is back to basics. You can literally go to the 10 Commandments. And one of the most powerful 10 Commandments is do not covet. Okay. And covet's one of those words. It's like, it doesn't ring like it probably did, back in Arabic or whatever. But to covet is for me to look at your boat and wish it was mine. I mean, how can that be right? What a turd. It doesn't matter if it's to me to look at your life and go, man, I wish I had his life. Not, I'm happy for you that you have your life. I wonder what I can do to aspire to such things. Because see, that puts the burden on me to figure out how to achieve greater things so that I can potentially have whatever it is that I admire of yours. But to want to take your stuff from you is 100% evil. Okay. It's evil. And it allows the precipice, the beginning of murder. It really does. That is where it all begins, is I look at you and I say, I want what you got. I want your car. I want your house. I want your money. I want your happiness. I want your joy. I want your land. I want your city. I want your neighborhood. I want your house. That's just evil, okay? And so we are teaching an entire generation in business with DEI and things like that say, hey, what they have, they don't deserve. So the beginning of coveting is to start justifying in your mind, in business, even your competitor. I don't want to look over at my competitor and say, I want to go take what they have in a hurtful way. Now I can say, I want to win over customers. I want to take a customer from you, but I'm not going to go steal that customer. I'm not going to go rob that customer. I'm not going to go kidnap the customer and force them to do business with me. I'm going to try to create a strategy that says, I have a better proposition for you, Mr. Customer. Don't do business with my competitor. Do business with me. Okay, that's competitive. That's different. But DEI and these kinds of radical lunatic stuff are toxic snakes. And I don't think that anybody with a brain in their head in business, in life in general, cannot see where DEI is covetous. So if you want to go just foursquare and just spit in God's face and say, I'm not going to pay attention to one of your 10 commandments, I'm going to covet, then go ahead on with DEI and see what happens. It's not working. So in these cities where you're having these crime problems, in these businesses where you have, like, how in the world does Cracker Barrel decide? And, deep down inside, I don't care, really. I mean, it's Cracker Barrel, but it's a shame. It's a shame. Our family, Gwen, the kids and I have eaten at Cracker Barrel. I would go in, Gwen would always get upset because I always bought toys. I couldn't help it. Every time we went, I'd get the kids something just because they had all those toys in there. And I can say, well, I'll just spend $5 a piece, and it would buy me in a more peaceful Saturday, which was worth $20. But, Cracker Barrel, you've got these elite nincompoops at the top who've been told that they're brilliant all their life. And they're not. Remember, the Tower of Babel was fascinating to me because what Jordan Peterson was saying that day, and a few of you guys pointed it out. You were like, hey, Mel, you made some good points, but you missed the main point, which is if you do that, like if you unite and you get on the same page with language to do evil, God's going to scramble. You're basically going to talk gibberish. Well, I didn't miss that. That was the point. But we were looking at it a little bit differently, but it applies greatly today because look at what Cracker Barrel did, and that CEO woman and her chief marketing officer, which are nothing but they're nincompoops is what they are. they have a wonderful brand. I want to introduce to you today that I believe that people fall into two camps in business. They love humanity and they respect God, and they don't try to be a God. They don't try to make their business a God. They don't try to make government a God. They understand that they need to live within certain rules, that people's rights come from God, not from business or government. But you either love humanity or you don't. And a lot of these people hate their customers. The Cracker Barrel loonies hate their customers. So is it Cracker Barrel's fault that they built every one of these stores to look like Grandma's Kitchen or Granddad's Barn or a mix of both, or anybody that's a picker that likes to go out and go to flea markets? I mean, it's that world. It's cool. You go in there and look around and go, man, is all this stuff real? Look how cool. Yeah, my granddad had one of those. Hey, look at this picture. And so many times, every time I've been in there, I've had these thoughts. And then, I've noticed Cracker Barrel's gone downhill over the last 10 years, and it's disappointing to me. It's not as good as it is 5 years ago as it is today. It was better 5 years ago. And, they hate their customers. So they decide, well, we're going to strip away our DNA of who we are, and we're going to put in some other DNA. It's not going to work. And even if it does, well, fine. Why don't you just go start a new brand? Go start Nincompoop restaurant brand. Why are you taking an iconic, country store, Cracker Barrel, Grandma's Kitchen, and hating everything that made it successful? Isn't that wild? But what I'm telling you is that is at the very beginning of the basics, getting back to the basics in business. You remember a couple of episodes ago, we talked about Brian Cook's. He had two things he mentioned to me. One was, Mel, let's be the master of the obvious. And you say, okay, whatever. No, but it was very brilliant for him to do that with me, because he was trying. First of all, it was the best practice that he had learned, probably from somebody else, and he'd put it to use as a copy paste. But it became a common language for us, because if I got off on a tangent or he got off on a tangent, or we weren't on point, we'd say, let's be master of the obvious for a minute. It was just a challenge for a minute to go, hey, hold on, let's put on our Inspector Clouseau hat and our glasses. And let's get back to the basics on this thing. What's the master obvious trying to tell us? It was brilliant. And so things like that matter in business. And so let's just think of some of those, okay? Taking care of things. Do you remember the old timers saying that to you? Take care of things. The way that you would position things in your room, the way you would make up your bed, the way you might position, say, pepperoni and black olives on the pizza. You're taking care of things. I remember Grandmama saying that. She'd be making a pie, and she would say, you slice the peaches and you lay them just like this around the outside because you take care of things. And she would say that almost like something that just was, an automatic response. Like she didn't really even, she had a purpose, but it just flowed, like going, and it was fascinating to me though, because it stuck, like take care of things. And sometimes if she would see us being sloppy, or, we wouldn't bait our hook right when we're trying to catch a brim on a cane pole or whatever, she would say, you need to take care of things. You didn't hook it like I showed you. And so once again, that comes back to the very basics of business. When you're talking to somebody and you see, hey, they're getting to work 5 minutes late instead of 5 minutes early. Hey, man, you need to take care of things. What's going on? You need to take care of things. Now, if you're a person that likes to counsel your employees, you can sit down and try to figure out what's going on. But I believe we've got a lot of namby-pamby, babysitting, where we're way, way, way down into the unacceptable mediocre trying to counsel people. And sometimes you just need to say, that's just not good enough. The line is up here. I know you can do it. So get after it. Take care of things, Mel. Right? That's been more my style than to let them drag me down. Now, if you've got a high performer and they have a real perplexing situation, that's different. That's different because you're engaging, doing your role to say, hey, this is complex. Let me help you. But when you've got somebody that's not taking care of things, just tell them to take care of things and just go, I'm not going to get involved in this. You take care of things. You don't need a nanny at work. You don't need somebody to tell you, get your oil changed because you just broke down on the side of the road and your engine blew up. And so things like that. Okay, another, early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. Right? Think about that. How true is that? Early to bed, early to rise. My mom used to say, nothing good happens after 10 p.m. And that worked okay in high school. By the time I got to college, I actually proved it wrong. But it's true, though, isn't it? Early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. So that's a chief tenet, a best practice to look at people and say, how about this one? Prepare for work the night before. How many times I've said to people, hey, you came into the meeting, I can tell you're disheveled. You pulled it off. I used to could do that. I had the skill set to come in and fly by the seat of my pants and pull it off. My really good mentor said, man, you could be so much better if you would quit living on the bleeding edge there, Mel. You're right out there like you're pushing, you're testing yourself. You're defying gravity, and you can. Okay. But wow, if you're going to be a leader, people follow you by doing what they see you do. So, maybe you're a super person and you can do things not best practice and pull them off, but that's not replicatable. That's not duplicatable. You want your people to see you doing things that they can duplicate so they can get excellent results, right? So you get more flies with honey instead of vinegar, right? Think about that in business. I've been pretty good at that in nature, naturally, to try to inspire people to performance and hold back on the stick. Sometimes the stick is they don't want to let you down because you've inspired them and you've believed in them and you've given them all the tools and you've looked at them and said, you've got a sign on your chest that says, make me feel special, and I see it and I acknowledge it. And I'm going to say back to you, I'm going to do my best work here, which is going to be to help develop you, but I need you to do your best work here. And y'all know where it goes after that. And we need to be the best people we've ever been here, at home, in the community, everywhere. And look at them. Okay, so now these best practices make more sense when you say to them, take care of things, man. What are you doing coming here? Mel, you're coming in this meeting. I can tell you didn't even remotely prepare, but you pulled it off because you can. But you've got an entire team in here watching you. There's no way they can do that. You need to teach them the best practices. You need to teach them the fundamentals, and the best way to teach them is to do them so they can see you do them. Monkey see, monkey do, right? And so, a couple of the other ones, be on time. Don't be late. You have no idea how that transforms a business. You've got guys or girls that work for you right now that come to meetings late, and you let them because they're good at what they do. But that is not okay. Get to meetings on time. In EOS, I got to have coffee with Ken DeWitt this week, and I just love Ken. And just a brilliant man, amazing, super, super, super talented EOS. He's been doing EOS for 13 years now, and I've been working with him in Entrepreneurial Operating System for 12 of those. But it was just good to sit with him. And, we were talking about that, like just being on time. In EOS, your meetings start on time. You shut the door and you lock it. If somebody's late, they miss the meeting. If they miss very many meetings, what are you going to say to them? You're not taking care of things, dude. I'm the highest performer here. You know how busy I am? I've got all kind of things going on. It's like, I don't care. The rule is we're all going to get in this room at 9 o'clock every Monday for an hour and a half. This is kind of how EOS works. We're going to turn our phones off. We're going to shut our laptops. We're going to focus. In that 90-minute meeting, 1 hour of it is going to be problem solving. So it's just an amazing system. If you're not using EOS, then you need to be. It's the roundest wheel I've ever found. It transformed my ability to lead companies because it's a language system. It's a communication platform. It's an operating system where they don't have to believe in me. It's not me that makes it work. It's a set of basic principles and basic the way you run your business, and it freaking works. It's awesome. But, little things that I was taught, and I don't care what people say anymore. We've got to stop letting these people reframe arguments and put us on the defensive when we're right. Run over them. Who cares? And so open the door for women. I've done that my whole life. Yes, sir, and yes, ma'am. And when you go to New York City or California or Idaho or wherever, not so much you get into some of the rural states, some of the most beautiful countryside, you just run into people like yourself. But in the cities, yes, sir, and yes, ma'am, and opening doors for women, I've literally been cussed at. F you. And I'm like, dang, just opening the door for you. And so, but they convince you that that's not chivalrous. Chivalry matters. Chivalry matters. It just does. Being respectful in mixed company with women or children and not saying, things that you shouldn't, which everybody does sometimes, but that's important. And I'm playing, Richard Pryor clips. And so, but, women and children first. What about that? Does that not exist in business anymore? Of course it does. I mean, if you have a female CEO and she's the baddest ass in the room, I'm still going to open the door for her, because the fact that she's a woman is factual. The fact she's a badass CEO is even more respectful, but it doesn't change the fact that I'm going to be chivalrous. And I will say, yes, ma'am. I always do. It's just what I do. Here's another one. If you don't take the time to do it right the first time, when are you going to find the time to fix it the second time? These things really resonate with people. They're not taking care of things. They're going in and they're slopping through something. They half-ass do it. They bring it affects the business. And mediocrity is simply not good enough. It's just not good enough. So I want to listen to Jordan Peterson again. He continues in this same speech where he's talking about Dante's Inferno. He's talking about at the very base of the very root of evil is Satan. And then the very next level is basically it's deception. And it's letting somebody down. And when he gets back from this where he goes deeper into it, it's a continuation of what we just played. I want to start looking a little bit at our governments and how we're not holding them accountable. But this is fascinating. Check this out.
And not only is that place different right now, the place you were years ago is different, and the place you're going to be in the future, years hence, is different. And so all of that certainty, that strange certainty that you inhabit, can collapse into incredible complexity. And you say, well, if someone betrays you, you think, well, okay, who were you? Because you weren't who I thought you were. And I thought I knew you, but I didn't know you at all. And I never knew you. And so all the things we did together, those weren't the things that I thought were happening. Something else was happening. And you were someone else. And that means I'm someone else because I thought I knew what was going on. And clearly I don't. I'm some sort of blind sucker or the victim of a psychopath, or someone who's so naive that they can barely live. And I don't understand anything about human beings, and I don't understand anything about myself. And I have no idea where I am now. I thought I was at home, but I'm not. I'm in a house, and it's full of strangers. And I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow or next week or next year. It's like all of that certainty, that habitable certainty, collapses right back into the potential from which it emerged. And that's a terrifying thing. That's a journey to the underworld from a mythological perspective. And that is really something worth knowing. Because, journeys to the underworld are extraordinarily common in mythological stories. And, like the Hobbit going out to find the Smog, the dragon, and get the gold is a journey into the underworld. And journeys to the underworld happen all the time. And modern people don't understand what the underworld is, except that we've all been there. And we go there all the time. And we go there every time the solidity and stability of the world that we've erected, at least partly through our speech, is shattered because, some sort of snake appears. That's another way of thinking about it, and it's a really good way of thinking about it because, no matter how carefully you construct the little habitable area that's around you, there's always something you didn't take into account, and there's always something that can pop up its head and do you in and make you aware of your mortality and age you, for that matter, or even kill you. And that's the permanent situation of life, which is part of the reason why I think the story of Adam and Eve, for example, is archetypal. It's because we do inhabit walled gardens, right? Because a walled garden is half structure, society, and half nature. That's what a walled garden is. And a walled garden is a place of paradise and warmth and love and sustenance, but it's also the place where something can pop up at any moment and knock you out of it. And I think part of the reason that story exists at the beginning of this collection of books is because it explains the eternal situation of human beings. We're always in that situation. We're in a walled garden, or we bloody well hope we are. But there's always a snake. And then it's even worse, because if there is a snake, we're exactly the sort of creatures who are going to do nothing but go and interact with that snake the second that we can manage it. It's definitely the case that if you want a human being to muck around with something, the best thing to do is to tell them not ever to do it, have anything to do with it, which is, of course, something if you have teenagers.
Yes, sir. So fascinating. A walled garden, that describes our business. A walled garden. that describes your home, your neighborhood, your church. A walled garden, that describes the area in which you live. I mean, what matters more than being protected from the snakes? So we have snakes in our health, and you look at what's going on. And so I am going to talk a little bit about, say, Bobby Kennedy Jr., because he's really going after the snake pit of, hey, we spend so much money in the CDC, the NIH, who cares about the WHO, but the American infrastructure that is supposed to make Americans healthy. Is it really a walled garden, or are they the snakes? Okay, so supposedly we're about to get something released in the month of September by RFK Jr. about what causes autism. It's going to be shocking. I'm just telling you. You've got a snake inside the walled garden. These are not attacks from without; they're attacks from within. And I would propose to you that in these cities, and Birmingham, Alabama is one of them. You've got a liberal bunch of just. They're not representing the people. So here's the thing. Their policies represent the results that benefit them. They don't represent the results that benefit their constituents. Like public safety is number one. So you would say to yourself, why do the Democrats not want to talk about their convictions? Because their policies cause the snake in the walled garden. That's why. In business, we do what we call IDS, identify, discuss, and solve. That 1 hour of our business meetings, hour and a half meeting, once a week, same time, same place, happens at the very top of the company and in every department in that business, all the way down to the floor. Of that 90-minute meeting, 1 hour, the last hour, and after an hour and a half, it doesn't matter where you are in the meeting, you stop. If you start at 9, at 10:30, if you're the leader of that meeting, hey guys, time's up, we got to go. Well, I was in the middle of something. Well, we'll pick it up next week. It works, okay? But in that situation, what I'm telling you is the identify and discuss solve is designed to get to the root issue. You have to go why. Well, why? And what? Well, hold on. Why? And when you get to the root issue, sometimes it's not what you thought. The root is down there somewhere. It's not on top of the ground. You don't always get it. The root issue in these cities is that these mayors, these police chiefs, what is it? Look, I don't have anything against women, but what is it with all these just wimpy-looking women that are police chiefs everywhere? I mean, come on, a police chief, dude. I mean, look at the bad guys, look at their lieutenants and their warriors and their leaders, and then look at what we're doing to protect our citizenry. Seriously? Do we not know? Have we not watched enough war movies to see that brawn on brawn is how it's done? It could be women. I don't really care. But you better be one tough hombre. You better be a Rambo-looking chick. And everybody better know, don't mess with her. She will kick your butt. I watched her take Rambo to the ground. That's what we need. I'm sorry. Okay? Not some wimpy-looking librarian lady that's talking about DEI or saying things on the TV, but you watch what they do. Another basic in business. Don't listen to what people say. Watch what they do. Okay? Do both, but don't be charmed by the words. What do they do? What do they do? What's our definition of trust on the Mel Blackwell Experience? What should be the definition of trust for you now that you know? I trust people to do what I've seen them do. I trust people to do again what I've seen them already do. So trust is a power word. Well, I don't know them. Okay, well, you can't trust them. You have no basis for trust. You can hope. Okay? You can hope and you can watch them, but don't listen. Watch and see how it goes and build that trust. One thing after the next that you've seen them do so that you can believe that they'll do it again. That's trust, okay? And so these mayors, these police chiefs, these governors, these people that are entrusted with our safety, think about what Jordan Peterson is saying. They're cheating on you. They're not upholding the obligation to keep you safe. So this is fascinating. I want to talk about this because this was something that I saw, and I think it'll be very helpful. So this is J.D. Vance. To check out what he says.
roughshod over their cities and have been for decades. Why are Democrat governors angrier about federal law enforcement helping clean up their streets than they are about the fact that those streets need to be cleaned up to begin with? It shows a real sickness in the head. And I agree with the President of the United States. I think most Democrats, rank and file, nobody likes crime. Republicans don't like crime. Democrats don't like crime. Independents don't like crime. Why are Democratic governors doing everything in their power to make crime easier to do in their cities? It doesn't make an ounce of sense to me. But, Mr. President, I appreciate you being willing to help, and I hope these governors take you up on the offer, because we should clean up all of America's streets. It's the right of every American to live in safety and comfort in their community. That's right.
So check that out. I mean, is he not right? So this brings me to my next point, which is very fascinating. So I follow Matt Von Swol on X, okay? And he posted this. So I was thinking this, so I'm going to give him credit, though, because he actually helped me gather my thoughts. But I was thinking along the same path. Watch, this is a deception. This is a hijacking of a thought process and how they do things, how the Democrats or the bad guys do things. Is they put a fence up around, they put a no-go zone around a wrong, something that's obviously wrong. Okay, let's go back to what we were just talking about. Some of the basics in business. Don't covet, right? Don't covet. Okay, well, you can't go there. They will not let you get to that root issue because they put a fence around that tree, and they will not even let you dig down in front of them. You will not be able to discuss with them. So they blast people for even talking about the root issues that would help you resolve the problem that should be obvious. It's master the obvious again. Right? So what I'm saying is they make it impossible to get to the root issue, and they hijack the conversation. And then if you try to go to the root issue, you're an ist. You're a racist. You're a misogynist. You're a Nazi. You're a MAGAist. You're whatever. And they just demonize you, which is very Saul Alinsky, right? That's very much the way they do that. Well, we need to wake up to the ways they do things, because in business, it's really important when you do have opposition. They may not be able to confuse you, but they can confuse the ears of the people you're trying to communicate with. So remember, you want to be united in purpose. Remember the Tower of Babel. They were united in their purpose. And they were so effectively communicating with each other, had such a common language that God said there's nothing that if they put their minds to it, they cannot do. Well, in business, you want to try to accomplish that. But the snake in your walled garden of your business is why I say get rid of the cobras, get rid of the culture bandits. But they're there and they'll pop up, just like Jordan Peterson said. You're living in there. You don't control that. They pop up. It just happens. It could be health. It could be anything. But right now we're talking about people. They pop up. What they can do is distort and bastardize the words between your mouth and the sheep's ears, because you're supposed to be the good shepherd, and God puts you in that role. And then these good followers of yours that believe in you, and you can have leader followers, right? Somebody that follows you, but it's a leader of another 100 sheep. And then under them, they have a leader that manages 100 other sheep. So during that chain of command, it's very important to try to communicate and make sure you're on the same page and you're all going the same direction. You're rowing at the same time, and you don't have people hitting each other in the head with paddles instead of rowing together. This is what is going on in the news media. This is what's going on with these mayors and police chiefs that are deceiving and cheating on their constituents. They're putting you in a very dangerous. What matters more than your life here on earth? What matters more than being able to watch your children grow up and be safe? Do you really want to go to the hospital and see one of your kids beat to a pulp? Because the first thing that comes to your mind is, why? What is going on, right? And then these people will get in between you and the message, and they put a no-go zone around it, and they make sure that the people that are trying to listen to you, they're like, oh, Lord, I can't believe Mel said that. They'd be like, what's the freaking truth? What? I can't say the truth. Oh, no, because you're an ist. But check out what Matt Von Swol said. He says, a trans person just shot up a school. Notice how fast the narrative shifted. He says, A, it's not about the victims. B, it's not about parents who will never see their kids again. But instead, it's about protecting trans community from backlash. It's empathy pointed the wrong direction, he says. It's very smart. It's exactly what I was just saying. They take a wall and they put it around, hey, you can't talk bad about trans people. I'm not talking bad about trans people. I just talking about this dude that thinks he's a chick that just went in and killed a whole bunch of people, little children in church that were praying, dude. That's what I'm talking about. Oh, you can't talk about that because there's the backlash against the trans community. You guys are, and it's like, what are y'all talking about? See, they hijack the conversation and they make it wrong to talk about what's right. And we need to don't back off anymore. Jesus didn't. When they did that to Jesus, the snakes, when they went at him and tried to trap him and get him to say something they could crucify him for heresy, a heretic, blasphemy, then he looked at him and said, "You bunch of freaking vipers, he confronted them, but he says, okay, so he said it's not the trans issue. If it's not the trans issue, it's immigration. On immigration, he says they just say it's just families seeking a better life." And it says, okay, but then you learn about the fentanyl gangs, human trafficking. That's not good. But if you bring that up, suddenly you're heartless and racist. He says, see the game? Okay, so please see that, because that can happen in your business. It's people that are working against you, counterculture in your business, they don't allow you to say the truth. They make the truth and then the people are confused. So even if they can't confuse you, even if you can tie them in a debate, what you're really wanting is the ears of the people so that everybody will get on the same side of the rope so that we can accomplish this vision that we have, so that that there's nothing ahead of us that we can't do if we set our minds to it together. But this resistance, it's happening worse than ever in America. It's not the same as it was in the 1950s because they have seeded so many wrongs into society as rights. These are wrongs that are now given as rights. And you've got to go to the root issue and go, hey, these are wrong things, dude. No, it's a human right. Well, it's not. It's wrong. And whether you like me or not, you're going to face the wrath of God on these things if you continue doing wrong things. It's real, okay? And so he says you see a homeless person on the street with your kids. They say these are vulnerable people with nowhere else to go. So cities allow open drug use, tents, and crime. If you disagree, you're accused of lacking compassion while the entire community suffers because of it. See? So you try to say, hey, what can we do to help these homeless people? I'm gonna share a secret with y'all. I'll be like Joe Biden. I'm gonna share a secret with y'all. It's the policies of these mayors and these city councils and these police chiefs and these governors and a lot of Congress people. It's their policies that create these disasters. So when they say they have a messaging problem, they've got a real pickle now. For anybody to say, well, crime is not bad, it's gone down. What in the world do you understand? What we're talking about is crime is at a level that is unacceptable. One murder is too many. One rape is too many. And that's the truth. That's the master of the obvious. People used to not lock their doors when I was growing up. Like, not at all. People didn't lock their car doors. They didn't. If somebody got a car stolen, it was like, what in the world's going on around here? And so we've been boiled down to accepting the worse than mediocrity in our cities. Well, murders were down 20%. Well, how many were there? Well, it went down from, 1,000 to 800. It'd be like 800 people. See what I mean? And so people chirp these stupid talking points. So in your business, same as in our society, you can have useful idiots. Please go read Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky. I mentioned it last week. Go read it so that you can see what we're dealing with. They have a playbook. They have an operating system. They're better at it than us. They shut us down in the middle of our arguments by attacking us and making us demons when they're the ones that hold all of the demonic representation. I mean, everything that they stand for is wrong. It's just wrong. So the messaging is not the problem of the Democrat Party. The reason they're trying to figure out what they can say, but still deceive you, still cheat on you. Okay. And so it's very important right now that so they want to say, well, it's not right for the federal government to send troops into cities. Well, that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is, has that city had a murder problem for decades? Yes. Okay. Well, that's not okay. That's the root issue. People accept murder. The minute people go, there will be another murder in this town, Now you can get to the root issue. What has to be done to get that done? You have to get the murderous, crazy people off the streets. So now let's talk a little bit about Jen Psaki, who came out today and went full scorched earth turd by coming out. And now she's starting to try to replace her messaging with something else controversial. Little kids go to a Catholic church, sitting in there praying. And I don't glorify all this stuff. I don't even like watching it on the news, but I want to figure out what happened and move on. Somebody needs to do something to get these crazy people. But you have these, this is the facts. You have these little kids that go to a Catholic church and they're sitting there in the sanctuary and they're praying in the pews, and some lunatic, okay, with 3 guns goes and just starts blasting through the windows and just shoots the freaking church up. I think as of yesterday anyway, they said it was about 50 shots he gets off. Doesn't look like he went inside, I think. I mean, I may be behind because, like I say, I don't follow this stuff with bated breath. I want to know what happened, and then I want to look for solutions. So what's going to happen? All right, so these are the things. I wrote it down yesterday. Somebody's going to say prayer's not enough. We don't need your stupid prayers. Well, Jen Psaki ran out and took that dummy trophy and said that. And I'm like, man, gosh, see, she should be run out of town for saying that. Little children at a church with their teachers praying, get shot, and somebody says, we don't need your stupid prayers. Well, why would she say that? It's a playbook. It's the Saul Alinsky playbook. That's what they do. What comes next? We've got to get these guns off the streets. Okay. Yeah, seriously. Have you looked at what's going on with the rape gangs, the Pakistani rape gangs in the UK? Our Britain friends. Have you looked at that? Not the news, not Instagram. Have you looked at the sources? Not necessarily the lying media of the UK. Have you looked at factual sources to see what is going on over there with little girls, little white girls in their hometowns being raped by Pakistani rape gangs? I mean, can you even see the root issue here is that anybody would put up with one rape from anybody on a 12-year-old girl of any color. It doesn't matter. But because of the covetous nature of what they're doing with DEI, little white girls in the UK are the lowliest little things, and they have no rights. And that's crazy. And so then you have anybody that forms any rape gang that goes after little kids. And so what I've read here, and I've studied this for months, because you've got Tommy Robinson over there who's he's been through it all. I mean, they threw him in jail, and he is controversial, but my goodness, he has put out some good stuff. And so, if you want to see at least his side of things, then look at him, because he's a journalist and he's been saying and he's been documenting, and the government's gone after him because they just simply want to look the other way. So let's talk about something that's the truth in your business. If somebody comes to you and reports a wrong, first of all, there are a lot of folks that had something wrong happen to them and they decide they don't want to report it. That's just human nature. What can make that even worse is if they see somebody go report it and that person gets attacked or it doesn't go so well for them. They're like, well, I'm sure as heck not going to report it now. What makes it even worse is if you go report it and you get accused of the crime or whatever it was, and you end up getting punished and not the other person that did you wrong. So those 3 things are happening in our cities. Those 3 things are happening to citizens who somebody breaks the law against them and it's wrong. They go to report it and it doesn't go so well. It could be so bad as they report it and they end up getting accused of, well, you shouldn't have been wearing that dress, little girl. She's 12. Okay. So if you look at what's going on over in the UK with those rape gangs, you have to see that when Americans, our founding fathers left Europe was already off course, and we're just slightly behind Europe, maybe 30 or 40 years, maybe 60, but the gap closes quickly when you have global NGOs, Soros money, corruption like you can't believe, and a just blind sheep population that just can't see, can't hear, can't decipher, can't figure it out. But they're lying about the crime numbers. They're They're recategorizing rapes as assault. They're recategorizing murders as something else. And they did that during COVID too, right? There's a lot of us that went through COVID. I didn't get vaccinated. My family didn't get vaccinated. I just simply didn't think it made any sense. I didn't blame other folks for doing it. But man, I caught a lot of heat. And I'm not bitter about it. But I have a brain in my head. And those very same people that are recategorizing COVID deaths and that kind of thing, you have to stop trusting the people that have deceived you. Think about what Jordan Peterson was saying. You wake up and all of a sudden, the thin little ice you were standing on, what you believed was the truth in the past, what you believe was the truth today, and what you believe is the truth tomorrow has crumbled. And you don't know, and you're searching for truth. Well, who's the truth? Jesus. We've talked about this. It matters in business. What's the way? Jesus. What's the life? Jesus. It makes total sense. So in a world where you're on thin ice and you're in that walled garden and there's a snake or snakes, you better have a solid connection to Jesus, who is the way, the truth, and the life. That way you can keep up with what's true. Your ears work better when you're aligned with Jesus. Your mouth works better when you're speaking to sheep if you're a shepherd because you're aligned with Jesus. So Jesus can align your purpose and he can align your language simply by trusting and loving and honoring and worshiping God. What I loved last week when we talked, the nice preacher person was talking about this, the majesty of God and how God wants us to be in awe of him. He wants us to worship him. He wants us to go, wow, God, you're so powerful and glorious. And that just makes the devil so mad. The devil is the maddest in the whole wide world when somebody says, well, God's greater than you and you should worship God. He fell right out of heaven on that one. And you need to be careful in your business and in your personal life and in your town and in your city and your state that we're not doing the same thing, that we're not worshiping the government and saying, nah, not God. You know, the government's so powerful. The government's not powerful. The government's a turd. The government is made up of a group of flawed people, and they are trying to do what's best for them. And we have to hold our governments accountable, and they're lying to us. So I just thought it was fascinating about the crime, that how can you side with criminals? I mean, check this out. I just think this is almost hilarious.
No!
Good Lord.
Kilmar is our neighbor. You can't have him from.
That's a pack of little wussy people standing out wearing pink vests with free Kilmar. I mean, are you kidding me, guys? Seriously. Look at who the Kilmar guy is. He's not a Maryland dad. Look at who he is. Look at who these people are in our country. You know, you've got this trans person that goes and shoots up a bunch of kids. And that's just tragic. I'm not turning that into some anti-trans thing. But obviously, if you really study what was going on in this person's head, they were very confused and tormented. And if you remember what we talked about many episodes back, I think it was episode 3. This is 16, so 13 episodes ago. Mark Driscoll was talking about just ancient demons. You know, these are new times and old demons. And the whole trans thing is the Bible warns you, don't go messing with the devil. Don't go over and start pulling on the devil's skirt and trying to put your toe in the water of black magic and witchcraft. It's real and it's evil and it will consume you. The devil's fire will burn you to a crisp. That's what he is. And so I feel bad for the trans community because I think that those people will end up in a really bad place. And I feel sad for this person whose soul became so demonic that he would go shoot up kids. I mean, that's just messed up. So along these same lines here, we're talking about what Jordan Peterson talked about with betrayal, and how I believe that people, if you're black, if you're an American citizen of any stripe, we all want to live in a safe city, a safe neighborhood, a safe town. We all do. That just makes no sense. And people that want to prey upon others should be locked up. And there should be disincentives and people should be taught, hey, don't do that. But it comes back to the core values. In your business, we have core values. What are the core values of these blue cities? What are the core values of the blue cities? DEI is a corrupt, bastardized, deceitful, covetous thing. It can't be a core value because it's destructive. One of my core values is to worship the devil. Okay, well, that ain't going to go so good. And so the core values of a city matter, and people should vote based on those core values, the basic tenets of what I expect from my government, and stop coveting other people. Stop wanting their stuff. Stop thinking I can have more because the government will take from them and give it to me. That's evil. If your government is in that mode, your government is acting as an evil entity, and that government is aligned with evil principalities. That's how I feel, straight up. So that's why you're having these horrible situations in these cities where it just doesn't make sense. How would you let people who have done a felony crime or any crime that hurts another person physically, you know what I mean? Like goes out and does it. That's just, they murder people, they rape people, they beat people up, they steal all their stuff. You know what I mean? These kinds of violent crimes, those people should not be back out on the street. They should go to trial and they should be punished. And we should set new expectations in our society where that's just not okay. You can't do that. You can't go with 15 of your buddies and break into Miss Paula's store and steal all her stuff and then leave and then beat her up on the way out. And then you'll get arrested maybe, and you'll get put in jail and they'll give you lawyers and you'll be out and you won't serve any time. Is that really the core value of America? How's that going to work out, right? It won't. But in that same vein, you have to think about health. Have we been in a walled garden in America, the richest nation in the history of the world, and we have been boiling frogs where our government, our food industry, our pharmaceutical industry, all of the big blank, all the big business and the big government and the NGOs and the corrupt money and the lobbyists, have they actually been making us sicker?
Horror show what's happening in our country and some other countries, but mostly our country. How are you doing on that?
We are doing very well. We will have announcements as promised in September. We're finding certain interventions now that are clearly, almost certainly causing autism. And we're going to be able to address those in September.
It's such a big day. I'm looking forward to that day because there's something wrong when you see the kind of numbers that you have today versus 20 years ago. And those numbers, what are those numbers, Bob?
In 1970, the biggest epidemiological study in history was done in Wisconsin. They looked at 900,000 children, and they were looking for autism. They knew what it looked like, and they were very, very precise about it, and they found an incident rate of 0.7, in other words, less than 1 per every 10,000 children. Today, our most recent numbers are 1 in every 31 kids. It's probably actually much worse than that because California, which has the best collection system, is reporting 1 out of every 19 children, now American children, has autism, 1 in every 12.5 boys. So it's gone from less than 1 in 10,000 in 1970 to 1 in 12.5 boys.
Think of those numbers. So there has to be something artificially causing this, meaning a drug or something. And I know you're looking very strongly at different things, and I hope you can come out with that as soon as possible.
We will.
So 1 in 10,000, and now it's 1 in 31 or 34 or 12 if it's a boy. Can you imagine that? 1 in 12. That's for a boy.
1 in every 12.5 boys.
It's not even believable that could be. And that was 1 in 10,000 not so long ago. I've been hearing these numbers, and they get worse and worse every year. There's got to be something. I think there's nothing, including favored nations and everything else, there's nothing that can be, if you can find out the reason that that's happening, and I know we're gonna do some things. I think we maybe know the reason, and I look forward to that press conference, to be with you on that press conference. That's going to be a great thing.
They already know. So he knows, and they're really this administration is really good at greasing the skids. Trump's always been a good marketer, and sometimes you just can't handle it all at once. And so he's softening up the entrance for a pretty powerful landing here. So we'll be looking forward to what Kennedy comes up with. But yeah, I mean, look, I mean, once again, let's be the master of the obvious. Somebody's either benefiting so much or so greedy, and they're so money hungry. There's a group of people around this scenario that are making so much money that they have they hate humanity. Remember what I said. If you either love humanity, and one of the reasons I've taken even more of a shining to Trump is because he appears to me to be sincerely interested in saving human lives, even Russian lives, even Ukrainian lives, even Pakistani lives, even the lives in the Congo, all around the world. And that is a noble cause. That is the real sign of a peacemaker, that you're not making peace to make he is very money oriented, don't get me wrong, but he actually, I think what's really driving him at the stopping of wars is he loves humanity. He doesn't, who wants to meet their maker? Who wants to be judged by God and Jesus, who had the power to help people and had something to do with 1 out of 19,000 people having autism going to 1 out of 12, 15, 19. That would be that's going to be a woe is you moment right there. But something's going on, and I think that it comes down to something very corrupt, and we have been deceived. We have been betrayed by a healthcare system, a regulatory system, a Food and Drug Administration, institutes of health have betrayed us. And I'm telling you, you're about to learn. You've been standing in a circle, and what you thought for the past, the present, and the future is going to get shaken. And it's a good time to make sure that you've got your roots deep down into Jesus so that you can make it through stuff like this, because this is a big deal. And the good news is it can get better. The bad news is this is going to be a lot of bad people that did this, not one or two. A lot of folks looked the other way. And just like these cities, just like in the UK, they're looking the other way with little girls being raped by Pakistani men. They take them down to the jail that's run by Pakistani people, and they get raped at the jail. It's true. You've got to look into it. What's sad is, the guy that comes and the Paul Revere that goes and says the British are coming and nobody listened, that has to be the worst job ever. But at least if you can be Paul Revere and you know the truth and you go, hey, I'm telling you the truth. If people will respond, you feel like, okay, I've done my job. But it's got to be sad to go to the top of the hill and say, hey, this, let me tell you all the truth about what's going on. And the sheep go, meh, and they don't pay any attention. They just keep electing the wolf, And so this is another interesting point I was going to make, and then we'll roll out today. All right. So let's get to a master of the obvious thing here real quick. In light of the little children getting shot up in a church, just unbelievable. I don't know about you guys, but that I didn't get. I wasn't all on the edge of my seat watching that crap. I just wanted to. I don't know. I just was like, wow. But, y'all, when you're a little kid, you wonder, Antichrist. I wonder what the Antichrist looks like, Antichrist. Well, I can assure you this. It'll be an anti-Christian movement, right? So Christian, first part of Christian is Christ, a Christian, right? So any attack on Christians is Antichrist. It's evil. It really is. And, you're facing, you're suffering that evil, on behalf of Jesus and God and the Holy Spirit, hopefully. But Christians facing escalating persecution globally. I've done some research. Over 380 million Christians experiencing high levels of discrimination and violence in the year 2024 to 25. That marks a pretty good rise from previous years. This includes targeted attacks in the United States, Europe, and beyond, often involving arson, murder, rape, and assault, disproportionately perpetrated by Islamist extremists. Okay? So, obviously yesterday doesn't look like an Islamist, but it doesn't matter. It's Antichrist. It's evil. So the devil can put on a fox outfit and raid the chicken house. He can put on a wolf outfit and eat the sheep. He can put on a Freddy Krueger outfit and get you in your dreams, right? So the devil is the master of disguise and many lies. And so governments and media often contribute to this through policies that undermine Christian rights, suppression, or misclassification of incidents. and underreporting that minimizes the scale or blames victims. Do you hear what I'm saying? Now, this is research. This is coming from reports from the Open Doors Foundation, the Family Research Council, and the OIDAC, the Europe substantiates a pattern of systemic hostility. So this isn't me making this up. This was a few hours of research and then feeding that to AI and saying, hey, dig deeper, and getting back confirmation. But so over 400 acts of vandalism, arson, and violence in 2024 alone, affecting 383 churches in the United States. That's a sharp increase from prior years. Incidents include arson, gun-related attacks, and bombings, often linked to anti-Christian sentiment. Between 2018 and 24, there were 1,384 hostile acts, with gun violence rising significantly. Okay, so what we're saying is that for 18 through 24, 1,384. Just 24 alone was 383 churches that were attacked. That's horrible. Christian schools also face assaults. In 2024, multiple incidents targeted Christian communities, including murders and rapes tied to ideological motives. Government policies have been criticized for weaponizing laws against Christians, such as through anti-bias initiatives that allegedly ignore anti-Christian violence while prioritizing other groups. Okay, you know what that means, right? So when I told you wouldn't go and report something by human nature just because certain people would just go, I'll handle this myself, I really don't. They could be embarrassed, they could be proud, they could be a lot of different things. It could be distrust. Remember what Jordan Peterson talked about, that the basis of the best relationships is trust. Well, the trust is broke. The black community hasn't trusted the police in decades. Can you blame them, honestly? And so when it's not right to say the black community, because black people are individual, but they have many people that grew up black have a distrust towards the police, and even if that has gotten better, it exists in their hearts and their minds, and so what we're seeing here is towards Christians. Well, listen, black communities, Latino communities, heavy Christian, not as it might have decreased some, but when you're a Christian, it doesn't. Your Jesus' blood is red. You're covered by the red blood of Jesus. It doesn't matter what color you are. That's an amazing part of being a Christian. But attacks in Europe. Europe saw 2,444 anti-Christian hate crimes in 2024. 2,444. Can you believe that? And so, you had Pakistani migrants raping people. You've got them setting churches ablaze. I mean, it's bizarre. All right, so we'll close out with this. This is where I mean when you get to the root issue on things. So what we've talked about today with Jordan Peterson talking about, Dante's Inferno, and at the very base of evil is Satan. And then just as far as the hierarchy of evil, at least from Dante, was the next level up is deception and betrayal. And I'm proposing to you that in business, you do not want to deceive and betray your customers. You don't want to deceive and betray your employees. You want to be a good shepherd. We've talked about that, but we're really focusing on government today because you have government that's failing you. They're deceiving you. They're betraying you. And then they're telling you that solutions that will work, common sense solutions that like granddaddy would get out of his truck and say, well, damn it, that's what I'm going to do. And it would work. And you'd be like, oh, don't mess with granddaddy. I mean, they don't want the granddaddy around. They don't want the John Wayne. They don't want Clint Eastwood to come into Pale Rider and clean up the town. Why? Because their policies are what create the mess, and they're making money off the mess, whether that is the healthcare system, and it's just hard to believe, but you're about to get rattled, is coming. And then, or whether that's these cities and these towns and these governors and these politicians whose very ways of doing things, all of their policies create this mess, and they control you with the mess. And we're like, hey, we want to fix the mess. There isn't a mess. Yes, there is, So estimated breakdown of persecuted Christians by race. I want to close out with this. So this is coming from Open Doors, Pew Research, other organizations, and they typically report by country and region. So if you just look at the total number of Christian population, there's 2.4 billion Christians globally, 600 million in Africa, 400 million in Asia, 600 million in Latin America, 200 million in the Middle East, North Africa, and 600 million Christians in Europe, North America, Oceania. Okay, so that's wow. I mean, Africa has a lot of Christians, right? So how are they being treated? So the black population is the most persecuted Christian population on the planet. Over 150 million, about 40% of total persecuted Christians are black. So within that group, persecution would include, any level of crimes against them. So it could include rapes and murders, but the total number of persecuted Christians in the black, South African, sub-Saharan African descent, 150 million. Of those, 102 million are extreme persecution. Can you believe that? So in Asia, East, South, and Southeast Asian descent, 170 million, about 45% total. So the largest group due to massive populations and restrictive regimes. And so there are about 97 million of those 170 that are high persecution. So you're talking, violent crimes against them. In the Middle Eastern Arab, including North African, West Asian descent, about 20 million are persecuted. Christians are persecuted. In the Middle East, about 5% of the total. Okay. And then when you get to Latin Hispanic, which is Latin America descent, about 20 million Christians facing persecution, about 5% of the total. And that's just, white European descent, less than 5 million, less than 2% of the total. Okay. So what I'm telling you is, it's coming, dude. The big jewel in the devil's attack of Antichrist, anti-Christian, is the Western white population that controls the money, that has the militaries, etc. And so just because, when you look over at these Christians that are our brothers and sisters in Christ, they're going to go to heaven just like you, and God loves them just as much as he loves you. And these Christians are fighting and clawing to have Christ at the center of their life and to do right and to follow the same biblical principles that we do and the best practices of life. And they're being literally hunted down and beaten up, killed, raped, stolen from, places burnt to the ground. It's insane. And you have to care. And you say, well, how could that happen? It's their governments are corrupt as hell. That's why. Their governments are overtaken by people who don't protect their constituents. They're like rats. Their governments hate humankind. And we need to look at the governments that are governing us in our cities and our towns and our states and our representatives and ask the question, do you hate me? Do you hate humanity? Do you covet me? Do you covet what I have? Do you covet my heritage? Do you covet my DNA? Do you covet, my athletic skills? Do you cover my business skills? Do you covet the money that I've made or that I inherited? I mean, all these things are wrong. And to have children raised to look over at somebody and go, that person's green. Green people are bad. I can take stuff from green people. Let's go beat up Greenie. I mean, come on, man. That's where we are. And so, well, look, I want to go out today with Jerry Seinfeld. I know my generation grew up watching Jerry, and he's just so funny. But let's hear what Jerry has to say to close out today's segment.
I got married late in life. I was 45. I had some issues. Was enjoying those issues quite a bit, as I recall.
I think he dated a 17-year-old.
When I was single, I had married friends. I would not visit their homes. I found their lives to be pathetic and depressing. Now that I'm married, I have no single friends. I find their lives to be meaningless and trivial experiences. In both cases, I believe I was correct. Whichever side of marriage you're on, you don't get what the other people are doing. I can't hang out with single guys. If you don't have a wife, we have nothing to talk about. You have a girlfriend? That's wiffle ball, my friend. You're playing paintball war. I'm in Afghanistan with real loaded weapons. Married guys play with full clips and live rounds. This is not a drill. Single guy sitting on a merry-go-round blowing on a pinwheel. I'm driving a truck full of nitro down a dirt road. You single guys here tonight looking at me, hey, Jerry, what if I want to be a married guy like you? What do I got to have if I want to be a married guy? I'll tell you what you got to have. You better have some answers, buddy. You better have some answers for that woman. Women have a lot of questions. Their brains are strong, active, and on high alert at all times. You're sleeping. She's researching. The female brain is cooking all the time. The female brain is one of the most competent and capable organs in all of the biological universe. Girl power. You're goddamn right. There's nothing the female brain cannot do. It will solve all problems of Earth and life. Having completed that, it will move on to the hypothetical.
Seinfeld is so funny. Well, look, I hope you've enjoyed the Mel Blackwell Experience today. Remember, take care of things and don't covet. And have a very safe Labor Day weekend. Till next week, cheers.